The rain fell in cold, rhythmic sheets against the towering gates of Wellington Academy, a fortress of prestige cloaked in ivy, marble, and the arrogance of old money. Each drop hit the iron bars with a soft clang, like the ticking of a clock counting down to the next humiliation. As Diego Navarro stepped through them, his sneakers squelching on the pristine cobblestone driveway, he paused. For a second, he looked up at the stately facade looming over him. Every inch of it screamed heritage, wealth, and exclusion. His reflection flickered briefly in the polished brass nameplate, Wellington Academy, excellence through legacy. The words stabbed at him. Diego had no legacy, no last name etched in stone, no generational alumni, only a scholarship, and a dream that seemed to shrink with each step. His clothes were pressed with care, his shirt slightly too big, and his notebook clutched tightly in one trembling hand. In the other, he held the memory of his grandmother's words, etched deeper than ink. Esto es tu puente, mijo. Camina como si te pertenece. This is your bridge, my son. Walk it like you own it. But as he entered the grand foyer, the scent of lemon polish, aged wood, and entitlement filled his lungs like smoke. The chandeliers overhead gleamed like stars far out of reach. His breath caught, not from awe, but from the sudden weight in his chest. Every painting on the wall, every gold-plated name on a donation plaque reminded him he didn't belong. The whispers started almost instantly, low enough to be secret, loud enough to be heard. "That's him," a girl in pearls whispered to a friend whose laughter bubbled like champagne. "The scholarship kid. He lives above a laundromat or something." "He looks like he brought the whole barrio with him," her friend added, her eyes scanning his shoes with disdain. "Hope they fumigated." Diego kept walking. He didn't flinch. His eyes, though wide with quiet pain, stayed fixed ahead. He didn't look at them. Instead, his gaze locked on the glimmering object behind the glass door of the music room. A concert grand piano. Black lacquer, ivory keys. The kind of instrument you didn't play, you conversed with. Sunlight streamed in and danced across its surface like magic. It was beautiful. It was impossible. And then it was shattered. His moment, his breath, his hope, when a teacher rushing by with a clipboard snapped her fingers in his face. "The service entrance is around back, dear. We don't accept deliveries through the main lobby." She didn't even look at him again. The hallway erupted in laughter. It was sharp, brutal, and practiced. And Diego stood there, frozen in place, a flush creeping up his neck. Lunch offered no reprieve. He sat at a corner table, quiet, alone, carefully unwrapping 2 homemade empanadas wrapped in foil. The smell reminded him of home, of Doña Carmen's tiny kitchen filled with laughter, struggle, and love. But before he could take a bite, a shadow fell over his table. Director Henderson. Henderson looked like he belonged in a museum. Immaculate gray suit, expensive shoes, skin stretched thin over an unforgiving jawline. He regarded Diego like an artifact that didn't fit in the exhibit. "Well, well," he said, tapping Diego's lunch with a manicured finger. "What's this? Gourmet from the ghetto?" Diego looked down, embarrassed. I play a little," he murmured when asked about the piano. "A little?" Henderson turned to the cafeteria like a stage actor delivering a monologue. "How charming. Our charity case thinks he's a pianist. Well then, perfect. Let's have him open the winter gala. Let's show the donors what their money's feeding." Laughter again. It came from all directions. Diego tried to swallow the lump in his throat, but it stuck like a stone. And later that same day, the music room was locked with a padlock. A literal lock on his only source of joy. That night, Diego descended into the basement of their crumbling apartment building, a forgotten space filled with the scent of mildew, broken dreams, and old furniture. But in the corner stood a battered upright piano. Its wood was chipped, its keys yellowed, and one pedal dangled loose. But Diego sat down like he always did. He placed his fingers, roughened and calloused from years of playing on this relic, and closed his eyes. The flickering bulb overhead hummed like a stage light, and suddenly the peeling paint disappeared. The leaking pipes dissolved. In his mind, he stood beneath the lights of Carnegie Hall, playing for kings and queens. When the world tells you to kneel, his grandmother's voice whispered inside him, play like you're touching heaven. The next morning, the school unveiled the gala poster. Diego's name was there, bold and hopeful, and scrawled over in thick black marker, "Trash can bandit." A crumpled fast food wrapper was taped beside it. Someone had even drawn stink lines around his name. But Diego didn't cry. He didn't scream. He walked past the poster without a word. The night of the gala arrived like a storm in slow motion. The auditorium sparkled with chandeliers and glittering gowns. Waiters served hors d'oeuvres on silver trays, and cameras flashed like paparazzi. Diego stood backstage, clutching his thrifted blazer, the sleeves too long, the collar slightly frayed. Doña Carmen had ironed it 3 times that morning, her hands trembling with pride and fear. As the MC introduced him with a backhanded compliment, Wellington's most unique talent, Diego stepped into the spotlight. The whispers started immediately, a ripple of confusion, a few suppressed giggles. But then he sat, and the room shifted. His first note rang out like a bell, and then another, and another. His music was not delicate. It was thunderous, emotional, unapologetically raw. He played like a dam breaking, his soul pouring out in a flood of melody. The keys wept, the strings screamed, and in every phrase he told a story of being underestimated, of hunger, of nights filled with dreams and aching hands. The janitor in the back stopped mid-mop, leaning against his broom, tears lining his cheeks. A woman in a fur stole clutched her pearls. Director Henderson stiffened in his seat as the school's wealthiest donor leaned forward, his eyes wide with wonder. And then, silence. The final note hung in the air like a breath no one dared release. And slowly, one clap, then another. Then the hall exploded in a standing ovation that shook the chandeliers and echoed like thunder. Diego stood, tears glistening in his eyes, and bowed low. He wasn't a charity case now. He was a master. Weeks passed. One day, a letter arrived, embossed, official, sacred, accepted, the National Conservatory of Music, the best. Director Henderson opened it by accident. He stared at it for a long moment before smashing his coffee mug against the wall, ceramic shards flying like angry ghosts. Back at home, Diego stood at the bus stop. He wore the same blazer, now proudly wrinkled. Doña Carmen was there beside him, clutching his arm, her eyes brimming with tears. "You did it, mijo," she whispered. "You showed them." And months later, at Wellington's farewell concert, Diego returned, this time not as a student but as a guest. He wore a tailored suit, loaned by a local tailor who had watched his performance and wept. He walked to the Steinway piano, set something small on the lid, a faded plastic toy piano from his childhood. His final piece, the lock on the lid. He played, for every child mocked for daring to dream, for every artist told to sit down, for every door slammed shut and every cruel word ever spoken. And when the last note faded, Wellington Academy stood still, reverent, transformed. Because they didn't just hear music, they heard the truth.